All right, 6th grade math, this is 4.8, changing metric units. I'm on page 207 in the book. Make sure you're watching along or going along with me. These are the units that we're going to be dealing with in the metric system. These should be familiar to you. I know that most of the time you learn these in science, and these are those units. These are the words you put these prefixes in front of those words: kilometer, hectometer, decameter, so forth, kilogram, hectogram, decagram, and so forth, kiloliter, hectoliter, decaliter, and so forth. So as you're going through, we're going to remember there's a little saying, King Henry died unexpectedly drinking chocolate milk, which reminds us that those are the first of each of these letters. These are the units, by the way, and that's where the, excuse me, right here, I'll just make an arrow. That's where those come from. So that makes it easy to remember. So take a minute and jot that down so you remember that little saying. I'm going to be writing it and saying it quite a bit throughout this podcast. Okay, example 1. We want to change 0.64 liters to milliliters. So let me write my King Henry died unexpectedly drinking chocolate milk. So I start at liters, which is one of the units, and I count to milliliters. 1, 2, 3. So that goes that way 3 places. So 0.64, 1, 2, 3. Fill that empty place with 0. It would be 640 milliliters. And this podcast is going to be a little different. I'll just make sure the answers are right. I don't have their answers on this podcast. So that's example number 1. And that should look really familiar to you guys. Okay, example number 2. A notepad has a mass of 26.6 grams. What is the mass in kilograms? So basically we're changing from grams to kilograms. King Henry died unexpectedly drinking chocolate milk. We start at grams and we move it to kilograms. 1, 2, 3 this way. So 23.6, 1, 2, 3 would be match up with A. So the answer to that is A. Okay, example number 3. Moving right along, to compare measures that have different units, change one of them so that both measures have the same. It doesn't matter which one, just make them be the same. And sometimes you can tell without changing them, or you might use some other strategy. We have centimeters and we have meters. So King Henry died unexpectedly drinking chocolate milk. Let's go from meters to centimeters. Meters the unit, 1, 2 this way, so I just take the 1.6 and move it to 1, 2, which would be 160 centimeters. 170 is longer. So that would be your answer. Example number 4, solving a multi-step problem. State quarters. A jar filled with state quarters has a mass of 2.3 kilograms. The jar's mass is 0.9 kilograms when empty. Each quarter has a mass of about 5.6 grams. About how many quarters are in the jar? So this number right here, the 2.3 kilograms, is the quarters and the jar together. This number is just the jar by itself. So we want to know how many quarters in the jar. We need to know the weight of the quarters only. So let's take the total weight of the quarters in the jar and subtract the weight of the jar from it, so we can just get the weight of the quarters. So I lined up my decimals and I'm just subtracting. I get 1.4 kilograms. Now I haven't changed any units yet. This is just the weight of the quarters. So I know that 1 quarter weighs 5.6 grams, and this is a whole bunch of quarters in a jar. So let's change these kilograms. King Henry died unexpectedly drinking chocolate milk. Kilograms to grams. 1, 2, 3 to the right, so 1.4, 1, 2, 3. We add those 2 zeros. So I have 1,400 divided by 5.6, because this is how much all those quarters weigh, and I want to know what individually how many there are. So 5.6, I can't divide by a decimal. You remember the little over? So we move it over till it hits the bar, and then the second over is moved the inside over just like you did the outside. Add that 0 and then divide. 56 into 140. Let's try 3. 168, that's too much, so we got to go twice, which is 112. Subtract That's an 8. That was a 3. So that's going to be 28. Bring down the 0. Let's try 56 times 5. And it is 28. So we get 280. And that 0 means we'll just put it right up there. So it would be 250 quarters is how many you would have in there. And you could take it a step farther and figure out how much money is 250 quarters. And you could divide that by 4, because there's 4 quarters in a dollar, and that'll tell you how many dollars you got. All right, so let's look at some guided practice. Down here I'm going to write the little saying, because I have to remember what that is. King Henry died unexpectedly drinking chocolate milk. Grams is one of the units to kilograms. 1, 2, 3 that way. So the decimal's right here. 1, 2, 3. 0.230. I'm not going to write that 0 because you don't need it on the end of a decimal. It does not change the value. Okay, change milliliters to liters. Milli is here. 1, 2, 3. Liters is one of the units. So 3 to the left. So 1, 2, 3. I have to add those zeros. 0.0025 liters. And I can't drop those zeros because they're holding place value. Number 3, compare. When you compare, you got to make them the same. This is pretty easy to me because I know that 10 millimeters equals 1 centimeter. So 50 millimeters would be 5 centimeters. And 5 centimeters is greater than 3.5 centimeters. So that one works out good. Number 5, compare kilograms to grams. So let's change this to grams. Kilograms, 1, 2, 3 this way. 1, 2, 3. Add the 0 would make it 10 grams. 10 grams is greater than 8 grams. Pretty good. And last, what if, oh, I forgot the rest of the question. Number 5 says, what if in example number 4, the jar weighed 2.58 kilograms. Okay, so I'm going to back up to that slide. And let me erase the stuff on this. What if this number is 2.58? Okay, so just like we did before, we're going to subtract the weight of the jar. Remember, see, I lined up my decimals. Bring them straight down, and this is kilograms, so I'm going to change it to grams, which was moving it 3 places to the right. 1,680 divided by 5.6 over, and up. 56 into 168. If I remember right, 56 times 3 was 168. Exact, and then there's zeros, so you have to fill those because of the decimal point. Obviously, it'd be more than 3 quarters. You'd have 300 quarters. So that's that last example. So you're just changing the units. Use the little saying, the King Henry died saying, and just make sure you do what the problems say and label your answers. And we will see you next time.